They said I was too expensive. 18 years of building, problem-solving, mentoring, delivering results that kept the company afloat, and all of that, apparently, had become a liability. I didn't yell. I didn't fight. I shook his hand, walked out, and said nothing. But when the calls started coming in, first from him, then from others, I knew something had cracked. And it wasn't me. My name is Eric. I worked in engineering for nearly 2 decades, not just worked. I ran operations that pulled the company through rough quarters, turned around failing projects, kept customers from walking. I was never flashy. I never wanted my name on the company website or in those shallow team highlight newsletters. I just wanted to do work that mattered. The decision to fire me didn't come as a complete surprise. Things had been shifting for a while. New management, new priorities, new buzzwords thrown around in meetings like cost efficiency and lean strategy. You learn to read between the lines when you've been around long enough. Still, I didn't expect it to come down the way it did. A short meeting, no warning, no discussion, just a slide across the table, a severance agreement and a brief justification. "We're restructuring," he said, "and we've run the numbers. We could hire 2 juniors for what we pay you." That line. That's what stuck with me. 2 juniors, not 2 experts, not 2 seasoned professionals, just bodies. 2 cheaper replacements who hadn't lived through the product recalls, the late-night launch fixes, the client emergencies, who hadn't built the trust of the teams, who hadn't, frankly, earned a seat at the table yet. But I smiled, signed the paper, and left. No scenes, no emails, no loose ends. I thought it would be over after that. Quiet, clean. It wasn't. 3 weeks later, I was getting coffee at the usual spot. I had just started brushing off the routine, sleeping in, reading more, catching up on all the things I'd put off for years. I had no plans yet, no offers, just space to breathe. That's when I saw the first missed call. It was from him, my old boss. Then another, then a message. "Hey, Eric, can you call me back when you get a second? Something's come up." I didn't respond, not immediately, not out of spite. I just wanted to think clearly, and I didn't want to get dragged back into something I no longer belonged to. But curiosity gets you. I gave it 24 hours, then called back. He answered on the second ring, sounded almost relieved. "Hey, man, thanks for calling. Listen, I know it's awkward, but we've got a bit of a situation." No apology, just a situation. Apparently, the 2 juniors weren't exactly working out. They had missed a critical delivery window, miscommunicated with the supplier, overlooked documentation protocols that caused a delay with one of the firm's biggest clients. He danced around it, but I understood what he was saying. They needed help, fast. They wanted me to come in, consult temporarily, even just to stabilize the project I had built from the ground up. I asked him if he remembered what he said during that meeting 3 weeks ago. He didn't reply. I told him I wasn't interested. That should have been the end of it, but the calls didn't stop. Not just from him now. Project managers, one of the clients I had worked closely with, even one of the juniors. They found my email and reached out asking if I could share a few insights. It was tempting. Not because I needed the validation, but because I knew what was coming for them. They hadn't just lost a person. They had removed the connective tissue. Over the next few days, I started hearing rumors. People talking to each other in my network. Apparently, 2 more engineers had resigned. The new hires didn't know how to run the legacy systems. A customer was threatening to walk. Things were unraveling. That's when I realized this wasn't personal. It was structural. The decision to let me go wasn't made because I wasn't contributing. It was because someone in a meeting room looked at a spreadsheet and mistook cost for value, They always do. It's easy to think someone with a long tenure is expensive. You see the salary line and ignore the fact that the systems stay up because of that person, that the younger staff don't quit because they're being mentored, that clients return because of steady relationships and quiet reliability. None of that fits in a spreadsheet. I started getting invited to lunches. Just to chat. We'd love to get your thoughts. Polite, careful, cautious. They were trying to feel me out. But I wasn't going back. Not under those terms. Not with the same leadership. Not when the only reason they cared now was because it was costing them more to do it without me. I remembered something my father told me when I was just starting out in this field. He said, "The reward for doing your job well is that people forget how hard it is." That line stuck with me all these years, because it's true. When you make the complex seem simple, people assume it always was, and when you leave, the silence left behind is deafening. The company started offering small freelance packages, short-term gigs. They said they just needed help getting through a phase. I told them I'd think about it, but I never committed. I wasn't interested in bailing out a system that didn't respect the people holding it together. Instead, I called a few old colleagues, ones I trusted. Quietly, privately, we started discussing other options. There were gaps in the market, pain points we'd all seen over the years that never got addressed. I wasn't ready to build something new yet, but I was listening. One of the younger engineers who left the company after me reached out. She said, "They don't get it. They thought they were buying labor. But you were the reason the system never collapsed." I thanked her, told her to hang in there. I meant it. Because the truth is, when you're fired for being too expensive, it means you've become visible to people who don't understand what you do. They don't understand the cost of failure, only the price of payroll. In the weeks that followed, I kept getting updates. Another client had paused their contract. One of the systems I maintained went down for 3 hours, costing the company more in that single outage than my entire annual salary. Eventually, my old boss called again. This time, his tone was different, less formal, less sure. "Eric, I know I should have handled things differently. We made a call and it backfired. Is there any chance you'd consider stepping in, even short-term? We'll make it worth your while." He sounded tired, frustrated, maybe even a little embarrassed. I paused. Not because I wanted to make him squirm, but because I had spent years pouring myself into that place. And the moment they thought I wasn't cheap enough, they cut the cord. It wasn't personal. But that doesn't mean it didn't hurt. I told him I'd think about it. And I meant that. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted clarity. If I went back, even temporarily, it would be on my terms, and only if I believed it was worth it. I didn't say yes, not right away. After that last call, I hung up and stared out the window for a long time. No music, no TV, just the kind of silence that forces you to think deeper than you want to. There's a particular kind of heaviness that comes with realizing your loyalty was treated like a cost to be trimmed. And now, suddenly, your absence is too expensive to afford. I wasn't angry anymore. I'd moved past that. What I felt more than anything was a strange calm, like the air after a storm. Things had broken open, and now I had space to decide. Not react, not defend, just decide. That's a rare thing in this world. I wrote back a short email. I said, "Let's talk." We met the next morning. Neutral ground. Quiet cafe. He showed up before me, surprisingly. Shirt wrinkled, eyes sunken. I didn't say anything about it. He stood up awkwardly when I walked in, extended a hand. I shook it. "Appreciate you making time," he said. I nodded. I figured we should both be clear on what's being asked. He sat down slowly, took a sip of something lukewarm. "We're in a bind," he said. "I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Things aren't working. We underestimated how much structure you were holding together. I appreciated the honesty, I really did. But it was still a strange thing to hear, face to face, from the person who had decided I wasn't worth the cost." He kept talking, mentioning specific project issues, timelines slipping, misaligned teams, support tickets piling up. The junior engineers were doing their best, but they were overwhelmed. The clients were noticing. One major account had paused all development work, citing a decline in reliability and responsiveness. That one account alone had covered my salary multiple times over. He said, "We'd like you to come back as a consultant. Set your own hours, set your own rate. Just help us stabilize." It wasn't a bad offer on paper. But the money wasn't the problem. The trust was. I asked him a question I think caught him off guard. I said, "Do you know why people followed me in that department?" He blinked, sat back, shook his head slowly. "Because you had history there? Because you were good?" I leaned forward slightly. "Because I didn't make them feel disposable." He didn't have an answer for that. We agreed to a temporary arrangement, 3 months, part-time, remote if I preferred. I didn't sign anything that day. I told him I'd think it over, and I did for 2 more days. Then I called and said yes. Not because I wanted to save them. I wasn't there to fix broken management decisions. I was there because I still cared about the people. The ones who hadn't left yet. The ones who had been caring too much since I was pushed out the door. I started quietly. 1 call, then another. A few logins to old systems. Some of the engineers messaged me right away. Short, half-joking things like, "Feels like a ghost's back." Or, "You wouldn't believe what they changed." But beneath the jokes was relief. I didn't rush anything. I wasn't there to be the hero. I just asked questions, listened, and filled in gaps where I could. In some cases, I just showed them where the documentation lived. In others, I had to rebuild workflows that had been wiped out completely. It was eye-opening, even for me. The depth of mismanagement after I left wasn't just operational, it was cultural. The new hires had no guidance. The experienced engineers weren't being heard. Every decision was being filtered through one question. How do we spend less? No one was asking, what happens if this fails? And now, things were failing. One Friday, about 6 weeks in, I got a message from a senior client contact. She had worked with me directly on 3 previous rollouts and had stayed on even through the company's transition. She asked if we could talk. I said yes. She didn't mince words. "We're not confident anymore," she said. It's like the soul left the room. I know that sounds dramatic, but there's no rhythm, no ownership. We're getting deliverables, but they're thin, unstable. She wasn't threatening me, just stating a fact. Then she said something I didn't expect. "We've been looking around. If you ever decided to start your own thing, we'd be interested." That moment changed something in me. I had always told myself I was a builder, not a founder, that I didn't need my own company to make an impact, that working quietly behind the scenes was enough. But what if the only way to protect good work, now, was to take ownership of it? I didn't answer her right away, just thanked her for the honesty. Later that night I made a list. Names of people I had worked with, people I trusted, people who had left quietly over the last 2 years, who had grown tired of being ignored or undervalued, people who still had fire but no safe place to put it. That list started with 7 names. I messaged 3 of them the next day. Just casual check-ins, catching up, no pitch. I wanted to hear where they were at. 2 of them were freelancing and feeling burned out. One had taken a job at a large firm, but said he felt invisible. I said nothing about starting anything, just listened. Meanwhile, things back at the old company were still slipping. I was holding the system together just enough to avoid a collapse, but I wasn't patching all the holes. That wasn't my job anymore, and deep down, I think they knew that. One day, my old boss called again. "I just got off a call with our board," he said. "They're asking questions we don't have answers for." I asked, "What kind of questions?" "Why we let you go, why performance dropped, why we're hemorrhaging clients." I kept my voice steady. "And what did you tell them?" He hesitated. I said we made a short-term decision that cost us long-term stability. That was the first honest sentence I'd heard from him in months, but I didn't gloat. I didn't rub it in, because I was already thinking beyond it. I spent the next few weeks finishing the work I had agreed to. Quietly, no fuss. I left behind clean documentation, stable builds, and clear notes for whoever would take over after I exited again. Then I logged off, for good. And this time, when I closed the laptop, it didn't feel like a loss. It felt like a beginning. I didn't announce it on social media. I didn't write a dramatic post. I didn't owe that to anyone. Instead, I sat with it. Let it settle. Let it become real. And then, quietly, I started reaching out. Not with a pitch. Not even with a business plan yet. Just a message to the people on my list. "I'm thinking of building something better. Would you be open to a conversation?" Most said yes. Some were hesitant, burned from their own experiences, reluctant to take another risk. I understood that completely. I told them there was no pressure, just talk, just ideas. What surprised me wasn't who said yes, it was how quickly they responded. Some of them replied within minutes. One person sent back a voice memo saying, "I've been waiting for someone to say this." Over the next 3 weeks, I held 12 conversations. Honest ones. No fluff. We talked about what we hated in past workplaces, what drained us, what made us feel small. But more importantly, we talked about what worked, where we had seen glimpses of something right, where things flowed, where teams trusted each other without second-guessing motives. By the end of that month, I had enough clarity to start outlining the foundation. It wasn't about building a startup for the sake of it. I wasn't chasing a pitch deck or some inflated valuation. I just wanted to create an environment where engineers could do excellent work without fighting the system every step of the way. No prestige titles, no forced culture, just real alignment. We named it Northgrid, not flashy, but grounded. We started small, 4 of us, working nights and weekends. A product manager I had worked with on 3 launches. A back-end dev I trusted like a second brain. A front-end specialist who had left the industry for a year because of burnout, but came back when she saw what we were doing. And me, quietly holding the architecture together behind the scenes. We didn't rush. We built out the first client prototype with no promises. Just a simple goal, prove we could deliver better outcomes without bloated layers of process and meetings that went nowhere. 2 months in, I emailed the senior client who had asked if I was ever going to build something of my own. She replied the same day. We had a contract signed within a week. It wasn't huge, but it was enough. Enough to pay everyone fairly. Enough to keep the lights on, and enough to give us proof that there was a different way to do this. What happened next? It wasn't something we pushed for, it just happened. Word got around. Other clients who had worked with me at the old company started reaching out. Quietly, carefully. Some were still technically under contract with them, but they were frustrated. Delays, cost overruns. People they didn't recognize running meetings and handing off critical work to junior devs who weren't ready. One client said, "It's like they lost their compass." I just want to feel like someone's steering the ship again. We didn't take on everything that was important to me. I didn't want to recreate the same pressure cooker we had all left behind. We only said yes when we had the bandwidth. And if a client asked for more than we could give, I told them, plainly, I'd rather under-promise than disappoint you. That kind of honesty felt almost foreign to them, but it worked. By month 6, we were turning down offers, and that's when the call came. My old boss. I didn't recognize the number at first. It was a different area code. I almost let it ring out, but curiosity got the better of me. He sounded tired, not angry, just worn down. "I heard you started something," he said. I didn't confirm or deny it, just let the silence hang there. Then he said, "We've lost 3 more clients. 2 of them specifically mentioned you." I didn't gloat. I didn't even smile. He went on, "I made a mistake. I know that now. I thought cutting cost was the same thing as improving efficiency. I thought processes could replace judgment, but I was wrong." I said nothing. He asked if I would consider coming back. This time, not just to consult, but to take a larger strategic role. Rebuild what had been lost. I took a breath, and then I said, "No." Not with anger, not with resentment, just clarity. "I'm not angry," I said, "but I'm done fixing what others keep breaking. I'm building something now, something that doesn't need saving every 3 months." He was quiet for a while, then said, "I wish I had seen it sooner." I ended the call with, "I hope you figure it out." And that was it. I haven't heard from him since. We're 15 months in now. Northgrid has grown, slowly, intentionally, still no investors, still no fancy office. Just a distributed team of people who trust each other. The funny thing is, we've never advertised. Every client has come through word of mouth. People talk. They notice when a team shows up, delivers what they said they would, and doesn't disappear the moment the invoice clears. We're not the biggest. We're not chasing that. But we're real. Last week, I looked at our numbers. Revenue's strong. Margins are healthy. Everyone gets paid on time. No one's working weekends unless they want to, and best of all, no one's afraid of asking questions. I had a one-on-one with a developer we brought on 6 months ago. He's young, early in his career. At the end of the call, he said, "This is the first job I've had where I don't feel like I have to prove I deserve to be here every day." I didn't say much, just nodded and said, "That means we're doing it right." I think back to that day, the day I was told I was too expensive. Like my years of experience, my care for the craft, my quiet protection of the team was a burden, a luxury they could no longer afford. And now, they can't afford the cost of not having it. I never wanted revenge. I never needed an apology. What I needed, what I finally gave myself, was permission to stop fighting for a place that didn't value me and start building one that did. So, if you're watching this wondering what happens after someone decides you're not worth the price, remember this. Value doesn't disappear just because someone else can't see it. Sometimes it just needs a new home, and if you can't find it, build it.